scripture reading is from the Hebrew Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 15 through 20. See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and adversity. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I am commanding you today, by loving the Lord your God, walking in his ways, and observing his commandments, decrees, and ordinances, then you shall live and become numerous. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to possess. But if your heart turns away and you do not hear, but are led astray to bow down to other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall perish. You shall not live long in the land that you are crossing into the Jordan to enter and possess. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live, that loving the Lord your God, obeying him, and holding fast to him. That means life to you and length of days, so that you may live in the land that the Lord swore to give to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. For the word of God and its promises and covenant, thanks be to God.
May we pray with each other. God of all life, you have set before us a choice. Life or death, blessings or curses. If we choose life, if we choose compassion, then nothing else matters. And if we do not choose life, if we do not choose compassion, then nothing else matters. Help us when the choices we make are difficult, but oh so consequential. And help us recognize that you are our pattern, that you have chosen life, and that you have chosen compassion toward us and toward all creation. Amen. Moses is on fire, y'all. I mean, seriously, get a load of this patriarch, would you? He is preaching up a storm, and I don't mean that he is shelling corn while adhering to the mainline pulpit average of a 25-minute sermon. No, Moses is delivering a 33-chapter sermon born from the stories of the listeners' lives and the circumstances in which they find themselves. He's exegeted the congregation carefully while holding on to God's covenant, weaving them together in a tapestry of preaching brilliance. We catch just the tail end of his message in today's reading, and it all boils down to this. Moses says, choose life so that you and your descendants may live. He leads them right to the point of decision, right to the border of the promised land. It's a heck of a sermon, truly. But that's not all. Just after our reading concludes, Moses sings his swan song. That's chapter 32. He individually blesses everyone in the congregation. That's chapter 33. In chapter 34, he climbs a mountain yet again and dies. Now, how he supposedly tells the story of his own death is anybody's guess. Things happen in the genre of scripture that don't happen in other books. Things that defy rational explanation. And speaking of rational explanation, I failed to mention that Moses is doing all of this work when he is a mere 120 years old. Now, I don't know what vitamins the dude took, but clearly they worked. As the Reverend Dr. Katie Hayes said in this pulpit, Moses' vigor had not abated. Wink, wink, knock, knock. Now, I don't know his cardiovascular routine, but he had to do more than 5 miles 3 days a week and weights on days that he did not run. He had to have muscle tone that could rival men 1/4 his age and lung capacity, especially for all that mountain climbing that would make Michael Phelps jealous. Not only that, Mo, we'll call him, is delivering this sermon after he's been the leader of the pack, the key agent in representative ministry for some 40 years. At this point in my life, I'm 1.5 years into pastoral ministry, and 38.5 years from now, I'll be barking at near 80 years old. I don't know that I'll still be preaching, but if I am, Mo has an exit strategy I love to emulate. Preach for 4 days straight. Conclude with a big production number written by Lin-Manuel Miranda and choreographed by Andy and bless everyone I love in the style of Mo, set to the cadence and rhyme of Hamilton, and then let me go to the Palo Duro Canyon one more time for one last 3-mile hike and climb at the Lighthouse Trail. Say adios, sayonara, deuces, this preacher's gotta split. It can happen. For the story with which we must contend this day, the 40-year journey for the Hebrew children is soon to conclude. It's almost over. Finally, the nagging questions of, are we there yet? How much longer? From the complaining throng of followers in the back seat will end. And abundant life in the promised land will begin. Brother Mo knows it's time to hang it up. He's been dealing with questions of mortality, his mortality. He knows he's writing his last chapter. He hits on all the high points, the peaks of the mountains, the valleys of shadows. There's the enslavement in Egypt. Remember that, y'all? Liberation and the crossing of the Red Sea. It was so epic. Receiving those commandments on blocks of stone and wandering in the wilderness in what must have seemed like a circuitous journey. He wants to tell his hearers one more time how to live a good life. Like any preacher, past or present, Moses wants them to pick up the tracks he's laying down and take his words to heart. He wants them, all of them, to make a collective choice. To choose love. To choose compassion. Look at what I've done for you today, Moses says to the people. I've placed in front of you life and good, death and evil. And I command you today, love the Holy One your God, walk in God's ways, keep God's commandments, regulations, and rules so that you will live, really live, live exuberantly, blessed by the Ancient of Days, your God, in the land that you are about to enter and possess. But there's always a but. Get this, and I warn you, if you have a change of heart, refuse to listen obediently, and willfully go off to serve and worship other gods, you will most certainly die. You won't last long in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. So, I call upon heaven and earth to vouch for the Holy One who has placed before you the following choice: life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life, so that you and your children will live, and the Holy One of old, your God, listening obediently to God. Love the Lord. Firmly embrace God. Oh yes, God is life itself, a long life settled on the soil that God, your God, promised to give your ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Rachel. Everyone who heard Mo would have remembered what it meant to choose life. Moses had already climbed that peak in the sermon. Here's what he said: cancel the debts of the poor, push government to guard against excessive wealth, limit punishment to protect human dignity, restrict those who can be drafted, offer hospitality to runaways, refugees, and asylum seekers, pay employees a fair living wage, and leave part of the harvest for those who need it. These are the choices before you, all of them choices of life, choices of compassion that promote life, abundant life. Moses exhorts the people with everything his 120-year-old tip-top shaped self can offer. Choose life, he says. Choose compassion. It's an easy choice if you think about it. Right or wrong, left or right, blessing or curse, life or death, heaven or hell, white or black. Maybe we should not say that the choice is black and white. Because, as scientific studies confirm, the status quo has been and is to this day that white is right and black is wrong. However, if history is our teacher, as it should be, we know that white has been irreparably wrong, and black has been oh so very right. And all choices are not created equal. If we really think about it, choices can be difficult, and making a decision can be a choice between multiple options, none of them good, or some of them better than others, or all of them altogether quite elusive. Maybe the choice is more complicated than a dualistic yes or no. Life is, it seems to be, about the calm and the challenging choices we make each and every day. Furthermore, I'm not sure that I believe in or give myself in devotion to a supreme deity that gives one ultimate choice, and that's it. Let's be honest. Where is the grace in that? Choose this or else, turn or burn. That seems to be what the text says. This high-pressure choice does not strike me as love, let alone compassion, but manipulation and retribution. Is this the word of the Lord for the people of God? Is this the promise and covenant for which we give thanks to God? I guess this is a choice we have to make. To make matters even more interesting, we hear neither sooner or later of a collective choice from the Hebrew children. But we know from the stories that follow that the people of Israel experienced beautiful blessings and trying tribulations. Sometimes they choose life. They choose compassion. Other times they choose their own self-interest, and death and destruction follow. Still, what seems apparent is that the choice is not once and for all, but a choice that the people must make again and again and again. One choice does not seal the deal. Rather, the invitation is open-ended. Choose, and choose, and choose. This opportunity flows from the one who cares about the fate of all people. Moses even preached about this, saying, because the Holy One, your God, is a merciful God, The Creator will neither abandon you nor destroy you. God will not forget the covenant with your ancestors that God swore to them. Did you hear that? God is merciful. God will not forget the covenant. This is not a system of eternal reward or eternal punishment, but persistent, prevailing, preeminent, if you're Methodist, amazing grace. Even when we choose to act in ways that are unjust, God still chooses life. God still chooses compassion for God's entire creation. There's always room to make a new start. There is a wise and a wise in God's mercy, allowing us to make a new choice, to reaffirm allegiance to God, to choose life, to choose compassion. Perhaps God's merciful and gracious approach should be the lens through which we read this text written by Moses. God's optic should be the lens through which we choose life and choose compassion. The ministry of Week of Compassion, as we know it today, has been in existence for some 76 years. In the early 1940s, World War II created a series of humanitarian crises around the globe, just as every war does. The International Convention, what we now call the General Assembly of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, made recommendations regarding multiple aid and relief projects around the globe. These recommendations outline partnerships with multiple ecumenical ministries and counterparts from our doorsteps to the ends of the earth. The church designated a day of compassion on which congregations would hold a special offering to raise funds to support these mission projects. In 1943, the Wartime Service Fund was approved by the International Convention. And at this point, the Disciples of Christ designated a week of compassion to raise $250,000 for ongoing support of relief efforts. Now the work of Week of Compassion and its partners has expanded to include not just humanitarian aid, but also disaster response, refugee resettlement, and sustainable development from our doorsteps to the ends of the earth. Washington Avenue Christian Church is well known throughout the denomination for its commitment to Week of Compassion. Not only are you incredibly generous with this special offering each February, you are a Circle of Compassion congregation. The story goes like this. Washington Avenue Christian Church honored the Reverend Dr. Janet Long's 25th anniversary by collecting a major gift for Week of Compassion, a cause for which we all share a passion. Soon thereafter, we were invited to consider becoming a Circle of Compassion congregation, well on our way to the commitment of investing $10,000 in a permanent fund. It was an easy choice to make. With a From Our Doorsteps fund already in place to make grants to address the needs of friends, neighbors, and co-workers and members, we viewed this choice as an opportunity to launch an Ends of the Earth fund to address the needs of all our neighbors. You, Washington Avenue, are a church that chooses life. You choose compassion. Earlier this month, the Reverend Erin Wavin wrote the front newsletter article about Week of Compassion. She told stories about people in Honduras, Sierra Leone, and Eastern Europe. She told us that the needs seem overwhelming, and indeed they are, but she invited us to imagine how we could participate in co-authoring these stories into narratives of radical transformation. In other words, she invited us to choose life, to choose compassion. When we take a look from the doorsteps of this congregation, there are multiple and myriad opportunities for us to choose life, to choose compassion. Just south of us on Washington Avenue is Lorain County Transit. I did not know until Monday of this week that the bus route can take up to 2 hours. Could working for better, more accessible transportation be a way in which we, the people of Washington Avenue Christian Church, could choose life, choose compassion on behalf of our neighbors? In 2018, the median household income of an Elyria resident was $42,272 a year. And the same measure for a household in the United States averaged $63,179. That's a $20,000 difference, a significant discrepancy, and one that merits our immediate attention. Instead of reacting to the local economy, we should be proactive toward it. Shop local, eat local, hold off on Amazon.com. I'm preaching to myself. Patronize businesses owned by persons who are minoritized. And while you're at it, tell Bendix how much we appreciate having them in town, and we love for them to stay. Volunteer at the Elyria Hospitality Center. Read with children. Walk around the downtown square and pray for whom and what you see. If you know some good developers and entrepreneurs, show them the vacant YMCA building or take them to the mall. I don't know what you will choose to do, but I implore you, just like Moses did with his people, to choose life, choose compassion. The choice Moses sets before the people is not individualistic, it is corporate. The whole people must choose. We must choose. Our church must choose. Again and again and again. What choices will we make this day, this week, this year, and into the future? God is rooting for us, Washington Avenue Christian Church, saying, come on, come on. You are right at the precipice of the promised land. I know you can do it. I have faith in you. Choose life. Choose compassion.